Pork loin is one of the tastiest dishes out there to serve up to family and friends. The way that I cook it gives it maximum flavor, juiciness, and it can go well with just about any sauce out there. But I'm gonna top it off with a delicious, sweet, savory mustard and dried cherry sauce that's going to complement the pork perfectly. We're first gonna start off by knocking out some prep. Sound good? Let's cook. I have a 2.5 pound fresh pork loin. Now what I'm looking for when I purchase it from the store is that it's bright pink in color with no discoloration anywhere and has a nice white fat cap on top. Now this cut is the loin muscle of the pig, which is in the midsection and runs from the shoulder all the way to the rear. Now there are two ends to the pork loin. You'll notice one side is much leaner and the other side looks like two different cuts are in here. Now that top part is where the pork loin meets a bit of the shoulder. Do not be worried. This section is actually a little bit more flavorful because there is more intermuscular fat in it. Now what I'd like to do is truss it so that it cooks a little bit more evenly and helps keep shape. You're going to need about a 3 to 4 foot piece of butcher's twine. I'm going to go right to the end piece there. I'm going to tie a double loop knot right down and press firmly so that it presses down into the pork. Then go up about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, place your pointer finger, and then using the other hand, wrap the long end of the butcher's twine around and then tuck it underneath where you held your finger and then pull it until it's taut. This is great because you can pull it to help make sure the pork loin is nice and firm all the way down. Then just repeat the process until you get to the other end of the pork loin. Once you do get there, what I'm going to do is flip it over and then wrap the long end under every other piece of butcher's twine until I get to that end again. Then I'm going to flip it over and tie a double knot with the remaining little piece from the initial tie and then simply cut off any excess. At this stage, I'm going to transfer the trussed pork loin onto a rack over sheet tray lined with parchment paper. And what I want to do is generously season it, do a little pre-seasoned dry brine here. Now when seasoning with coarse salt, you want to be about a foot away from what you are seasoning to cover as much surface area as possible to ensure every bite is absolutely delicious. Now I do mean all sides, not just top and bottom, also the sides of the pork loin. We're going to repeat that process with some fresh cracked black pepper. Once it is seasoned up very well, it's going in the refrigerator overnight or for 24 to 48 hours. Doing this is going to allow those seasonings to penetrate deep into the pork, again, to make sure every bite that you take is going to be incredibly flavorful. Now, in the meantime, we're going to make a quick herb butter. I'm adding 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter to a stand mixer with the paddle attachment. I'm going to whip it on high speed for 5 to 7 minutes until it's light and fluffy. In the meantime, I'm going to prep up everything that's going in there. Beginning with 6 to 8 finely minced fresh garlic cloves. This is going to add fantastic flavor. This is also going to be part of our basting butter. Next, I need 1.5 tablespoons total of minced fresh rosemary. Now, I do use a lot of that stem of the rosemary because there's so much flavor until I get to the bottom where it's a little bit woody and thick and hard to cut through. Just remove the leaves and finish finely mincing. Set them right in the bowl with the finely minced garlic. Then we're going to repeat the process exactly until we have 1.5 tablespoons of fresh minced thyme. Again, use the stems as long as they're tender. There's a lot of flavor in there. Add them to the bowl with the rosemary and garlic. Then let's head over to our stand mixer. Let's see where we're at. Turn it off. I'm going to use a rubber spatula to scrape down on all sides just to make sure all the butter is being whipped and used up. Then add in the fresh herbs and garlic, and then just turn the speed on to low so herbs aren't flying everywhere. Then at this stage, we are going to season it well with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. And then just until everything is mixed together, be sure to give it a little taste. Make sure it's delicious. At this stage, I'm transferring it over to a plastic container. I'll explain why in a little bit. And yes, I always make extra because this is a fantastic butter that will go great with beef, with chicken, with vegetables, with fish, you name it. And in addition, it stores very well in the freezer. I'm just going to pop it in the fridge for now. When it comes time to cook, let's pull out our pork loin. It looks fantastic. You can see it dried out a little bit while uncovered in the refrigerator. This is absolutely going to help with the sear. Let's take this over to my cooktop where I now have a large 12-inch stainless steel pan. We are going to place it right on the heat over high heat. Add in 3 tablespoons total of olive oil. Once it begins to lightly smoke just like this, we're going to take our pork loin and we want to make sure we put it fat cap side down to start rendering some of the fat and browning everything up. We are going to let it stand for exactly 3 minutes. Do not touch it. We're just going to come back and take a little peek. It's got some nice brown in there. It can be browner. Now, just like in my reverse seared steak video, we are going to move the pork around in a circular motion for a total of 1 minute. Doing this will ensure we get that beautiful Maillard reaction, that nice brown crust all over the top, just like this. We are going to flip it on its side, then immediately turn the heat down to medium and cook it unmoved for 2 to 3 minutes, or again until it becomes very beautifully golden brown. Then we're going to flip it over onto the other side at this stage, and you'll be able to see that it's nice and brown. Let it stand here for 2 to 3 minutes. Then we're going to turn the heat from medium down to low. We want to bring down the temperature of the oil for when we add the butter. Flip the pork to that remaining unseared side on the bottom. Then we're going to add in now about 2 to 3 tablespoons total of our herb butter. We want to ensure it gets melted first before we baste it for a total of 3 to 4 minutes. This is going to help brown up everything and also add some nice fats from the butter and delicious garlic and herb flavors all over it. This looks fantastic. It smells unbelievable at this stage, but we're not done quite yet. We want to add it to the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that's nice and low, but that's going to ensure that our butter doesn't scorch and brown, keeping it below the smoke point. It's going to take roughly 32 to 35 minutes or until it reaches an internal temperature of 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Like I said, a lot of leftover herb butter, put a cap on it and toss it right in the freezer. Now, a really quick chef tip for you. You are in control of the heat. If you notice things starting to burn in the pan like the butter or the herbs, simply take the pan off the heat and set it to the side for a few minutes to let it cool down before you're ready to return it. That's it. Low to medium, medium to low medium. You be the judge on where that heat needs to be. Now, because I know I'm going to get the question, well, what does this dish even go well with? And while we got some time in the oven, I'm going to make my fried cabbage with dill and bacon. It will absolutely be the talk at the table amongst your friends and family. Here's how easy it is to make. I'm going to slice a whole green cabbage right in half. We're actually only going to use half for this recipe. Then remove the coarse, slice down on one side, slice down on the other, discard it. Then what we want to do is thinly slice it so that it's about an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch thick. You could also use a mandolin for this. Going over to the cooktop in a 6-quart rondeau pan, I have 6 slices of bacon that I cut up. We're going to cook it over medium heat until it becomes nice and crispy brown, which takes about 4 to 5 minutes. Once they are brown, we're going to set them to the side in a bowl, then add in our cabbage to that rendered bacon fat. We're going to crank the heat on to high and saute it for 4 to 6 minutes until it becomes a little bit brown and more tender. Now at this stage, after that amount of time, we're going to scrape the sauteed cabbage to one side, and then the other side, I'm going to add in 2 finely minced garlic cloves, a half peeled small diced shallot, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. We are going to cook this on the other side of the pan for just about a minute or two until it's lightly golden brown and for the garlic to become very fragrant. This looks excellent. At this stage, mix all of the ingredients into the cabbage, and then we're going to deglaze with a half cup of chicken stock. This is going to release some of the fond, some of that brown goodness stuck to the bottom of the pan. It's going to make the cabbage that much more flavorful. Now, once we're finished up with the cooking process, we want to generously season it with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. I'm going to add in 1 more tablespoon of unsalted butter, the crispy cooked bacon lardons, then 2 tablespoons of fresh minced dill. I know this seems like a weird herb in there, but I promise it is magical with the bacon and cabbage. Stir everything together until it's combined and all those flavors are married up. One of my favorite parts about cooking, of course, is tasting everything along the way. You don't want to wait until the end and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have adjusted things when I was cooking, and then it's too late. Enjoy the process of cooking so that it's not some tedious chore. Taste everything that you possibly can. I promise it will be so much more enjoyable. Let's check on the pork. Pulling the pork loin out of the oven, it looks fantastic. It is a perfect 130 degrees Fahrenheit internally right in the center. We're going to let it rest for 15 minutes, and this is perfect timing because we get started on our sauce. I've got quite a bit of oil left over. I'm telling you what, set it to the side in a bowl and strain it, because you can use this delicious herb garlic pork butter to sear just about anything you want, from beef, chicken, vegetables, you name it. Return the pan with only maybe about 2 tablespoons of that herb butter. We're going to add in a half peeled small diced shallot. I'm going to cook this over medium heat until lightly brown, just like this, maybe just 2 minutes or so. Then I'm boosting the heat to high and deglazing with a half cup of Cabernet Sauvignon. This is optional, but it will make my sauce that much richer. We're gonna cook it until there's maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons left over. Then I'm gonna add in 3 cups of good beef stock, and again, over high heat. We're cooking it down until it's reduced by 1/3 or until there's roughly 1 cup left. You should start to get that gravy-like consistency, thickening up just like this. Fantastic. And at this point, that's when we're going to add in some goodies, beginning with 1.5 tablespoons of whole grain mustard. You could use Dijon mustard if you want, but whole grain is just so much better. Then add in a half cup of dried tart cherries. I'm going to add in another 2 teaspoons of that herb butter because, well, why not? Season it up with coarse salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Remember, season once, taste twice. Do not over season here. It's going to be really rich in flavor. Give it a stir until the butter's melted and all the flavors are infused. And definitely get a nice sized spoonful and try it out. Oh, this sauce is seriously, it's just so good. And one thing I'm certain of is that nothing gets a conversation started around the table quicker than delicious food. Those techniques make great food and always the best memories. Let me show you how I plate this up. And probably the most important part here is using your knife to remove the butcher's twine. No one wants to eat cooked string. So make sure you remove that. And then I'm going to slice them in about 1-inch thick slices. You can still see I got that nice pink in there again. 130 degrees Fahrenheit is when I pulled it. It's probably about 135 to 140 now after resting for 5 minutes. And yes, it's okay to eat pork at a medium internal temperature. And for serving, I'm going to place the unsliced chunk and sliced pork slices right in there in the pan because it looks so nice. And I'm going to spoon that grainy mustard cherry sauce all over the top of the pork. Oh, I can't wait for you to try this. It's seriously good. I'm going to finish with some fresh parsley for some nice greenery. For the cabbage, serve it up in a big bowl and garnish with a little more minced fresh dill. And these are those meals that just bring people together around the table, creating memories, reconnecting with old friends. This is what it's all about. I promise you, if you follow the cooking procedures for this, you're gonna have pork loin that's just too tender, just too juicy, and just too flavorful. I think you and your family are gonna love this. And if you're really into sauces, you have got to check out my chicken scallopine recipe. The creaminess in that is magical. You'll love it. I have a great recipe video. See you on there.